We have several huge NHL signings to discuss today, as well as an update on the arbitration case between the Red Wings and Jakub Vrana, and we have a pretty significant retirement in the play-by-play community. We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a lot of big news to talk about here in the NHL. We have several really significant signings, some pretty substantial contracts here as well, and we have a few other quick news tidbits to talk about as well. First up, I wanted to update the situation regarding Jakub Vrana and the Detroit Red Wings. Now, they are scheduled right now for an arbitration hearing to settle their contract situation. And we have information from Elliotte Friedman today to suggest they are a huge amount, miles apart, on what they each are going for here. Now, of course, they could still settle before this is resolved through arbitration. It's still quite a possibility, but right now, the player is looking for $5.7 million, and the Red Wings are offering $3.65. Well, that is basically $2 million apart. Will they end up meeting somewhere in the middle? It's difficult to say, but I would think being that far apart, there probably is a better likelihood or a higher opportunity here that it could end up actually going to arbitration instead of them coming to terms on their own. But that's a significant difference there between the two sides. So we'll have to see how things go. Now, as I mentioned, we also have a couple of tidbits here as well before we jump into the other signings here today. Veteran play-by-play man Mike Lange for the Pittsburgh Penguins has announced he is retiring. Now, he's been doing play-by-play for 46 years and has been a part of some really big moments, 3 Stanley Cups in Penguins history. So it's a long time that he's been at his job. And he's certainly one of the better play-by-play guys from around the NHL. So that's certainly going to be quite different to hear a different voice of for the Pittsburgh Penguins here calling the games. But certainly want to wish Mike Lange all the best as he heads off here in retirement. And we also saw a different kind of a situation, the first, I believe, in the NHL, regarding the Florida Panthers. They've actually signed a deal here to work with a collegiate athlete. And that's Derek King, who is the quarterback for the University of Miami Hurricanes. So, of course, that's a pretty big college football program there in the state of Florida. So why would they be signing a quarterback? Well, it's not a standard NHL contract. What it is, it's called a FIL or an FIL agreement. So FIL is an acronym here that stands for Face, Image, and Likeness. So essentially, it's a way for the sport of hockey, and we'll probably see other sports do this too, to kind of grow their sport and reach out to a broader audience by having these type of contracts and affiliations with players in other sports, so they can promote their sport to their audience. So essentially, he's going to be working with them when it comes to creating some merchandise. He's going to be attending some games. They'll be doing different social media stuff with them. So look out for him on their social media platforms. I believe they're going to be launching one of their concessions in the arena is going to have like a menu based around him and his preferences, and all that different kind of stuff. Basically, just a way to be affiliated with athletes of other sports, and they're really trying to push their Florida athlete program where they really want to work with other top athletes in the state of Florida with other sports here. So it's certainly so kind of like a unique thing. It's something that I would think we're going to see grow. And obviously, like I said, it's a chance to grow the sport in other areas that other people that might not have really become hockey fans in the first place. So, hey, if it works, it's all good by me. It sounds like a great idea, and hopefully this works out for the Florida Panthers here, kind of setting the tone here for something new in the NHL. Now with the signings here, we got 2021 first-round pick Fabian Lysell, who was taken by the Boston Bruins, has announced he's signing his entry-level contract and will be making the jump to North America. So if he doesn't make the Bruins roster, he's very likely going to play for their AHL affiliate in the Providence Bruins organization. So that's certainly great news for Boston. They'll be able to keep a closer eye on their newly drafted prospect in that regard. Lysell certainly has, I think, a lot of potential for sure. It was a pretty good pickup here by Boston, especially considering where they picked in the draft. The fact that he was still on the board was probably a tad bit surprising, and it worked out quite nicely for Boston. The Philadephia Flyers have come to terms with young goaltender Carter Hart, who's coming off a season he probably rather would forget, and certainly is looking to bounce back. But he gets a 3-year contract, which is getting him an average annual value of $3.797. So obviously that's a significant raise for him coming off his ELC for sure. And it is one of the bigger second contracts we've seen on NHL goaltenders. in more modern times here. There have been some other ones previous to that have been bigger, a few, not a lot. So obviously it goes to show that the Flyers still have a ton of confidence in Hart. They're confident he can bounce back, and he's certainly going to be a big part of their future. I know last year was as much as he had a tough season, I think it was also as much about the team in front of him. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I know he's a guy that really likes to focus on the mental aspect of things, and I'm sure he's been doing lots of prep this offseason to get himself ready for next year. The blue line's going to be a lot better in front of him, so we should see a bounce-back season from Carter Hart. At least it's kind of necessary for Philadephia to have any kind of a success next season. The string of goaltending signings continue here. We get Ilya Samsonov with the Capitals. He gets a 1-year deal at $2 million, so shorter term. He'll still be a restricted free agent here at the end, as will Carter Hart, of course. That will be 6 years of service for Hart, so he'll still be a year away from being UFA status. So in Samsonov's case, he'll have a lot further to go, but still, like, that 1 year, $2 million is a pretty decent contract for him. Last year wasn't really great for him either. Had some issues with COVID and didn't have the greatest season, but he's certainly still a young goaltender with a ton of potential here. So that's another really good signing. And the bigger one of the bunch here, we get Igor Shesterkin with the New York Rangers. Now, he gets the biggest contract for goaltenders here today and is actually going to be breaking a record, I believe, if I want to be standing corrected on this if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the largest second contract for an NHL goaltender that's ever been handed out, if I'm not mistaken. He gets a 4-year deal at $5.66 million per season. And he's been good, but he's only played, I think it's like 47 or 48 NHL games. So that is a honker of a deal here for a goaltender that, yes, he's got, I really think he's a terrific young goalie, huge part of their future. I really like him a lot, but he still hasn't played a ton to get that kind of a deal. But hopefully that works out. I mean, he does have a lot of pro experience in Russia. Stayed over there a long time before making the jump to the NHL and really accomplished a lot. Was one of the top goalies. So to me, like, I really think he will be worth the money. But given the limited amount of NHL games, there is obviously some risk here. But obviously, Chris Drury and the Rangers are quite comfortable here with what they've put themselves into. So we'll see how that one works out. But a huge signing there for the Rangers and young Igor. The Columbus Blue Jackets have signed Andrew Peeke as well. He gets a 2-year contract. Both years are two-way deals. League minimum $750 at the NHL level, $100K at the AHL level. So likely going to be a player that bounces back and forth between the two leagues over the 2 seasons. The Tampa Bay Lightning have signed youngster Ross Colton, who of course scored the Stanley Cup winning goal in the Stanley Cup Finals to secure the Stanley Cup for them over the Montreal Canadiens. He gets a 2-year contract with an average annual value of $1.125. So that's not bad for Colton, who still doesn't have a ton of NHL experience, but certainly had a big moment there in the playoffs that he could build off of. And with all the exits in Tampa, I would imagine players like Colton and Matthew Joseph, etc., should be able to really progress their careers now and take on a bigger role for the upcoming season here. And the Ducks announced a trio of signings as well. They got Josh Mahura on a 1-year deal, $750 at the NHL level, but it's a 2-way deal as well. We've also got Max Jones. He gets a new contract. Jones gets a 3-year deal at $1.295 million. And they also signed another young top player for them, Maxime Comptois, who gets a 2-year contract at just a shade over $2 million. He gets $2.037. So obviously some pretty good signings there for the Anaheim Ducks. Certainly Jones and Comptois, unless they're part of a significant trade to really make an upgrade, will be a big part of their future here. So a couple of good contracts. There are still several RFAs out there as well. So we should be expecting many more signings here in the coming days. The New Jersey Devils also came to terms with RFA forward Janne Kuokannen, who was a bit of a breakout and surprise player last year. He gets a 2-year contract valued at $1.8 million. That's a pretty good signing as well. Like I said, a player who I think, fair to say, certainly surprised last year and looks like he could very well be a decent part of their future as well. So all these contracts, for the most part, except for maybe the Shesterkin deal or to a degree Carter Hart, fairly short term, fairly low risk contracts for players going into their second contracts here for the most part. Oh, also too, the Boston Bruins did sign JD Greenway, who that was the player that they picked up from the Toronto Maple Leafs via trade a little while back. Greenway is the brother of Jordan Greenway. He was a college player that was drafted by the Leafs, didn't sign, get traded to Boston. He signs, but he only gets an AHL-only contract, so he will not be a call-up option, but he gets a 2-year deal to play in the Bruins farm system and develop and see where things go, if he can develop into more of an opportunity there. So once that contract is nearing its end, they can discuss a two-way contract, so we can have NHL call-up possibilities if things are working out and the Bruins are happy with how he's progressing. And we also got news today as well from the Canadian Olympic team, assuming that the NHL players end up going to the Olympics here. We now know who will be the coaching staff for Team Canada's Olympic team. Will be head coached by John Cooper. So Cooper obviously coming off back-to-back Stanley Cups. Not a huge surprise at all. He's a terrific coach, one of the longest tenured NHL coaches right now. Has a great resume. He's won everywhere he's been. Before went through, put in his dues, leading to the NHL between the American Hockey League, the USHL. Like, he's got a long list of successful teams that he's coached before. So great selection there for the head coaching role for Team Canada. And of course, the assistant coaches will be surrounded like an all-star coaching squad with tons of experience. And there's other guys too that it could have been easily on this list. There's always a lot of options here. And of course, some of this also could have been boiled down to, which we don't know, is other guys could have been even offered roles and turned it down or whatnot. But we're going to have Barry Trotz of the New York Islanders. Of course, he's had a ton of success at the NHL. You've got Bruce Cassidy of the Boston Bruins, who's been a long-tenured coach in Boston, had a ton of success. And then we also have Peter DeBoer, head coach for the Vegas Golden Knights, formerly of the San Jose Sharks, New Jersey Devils, Florida Panthers. Peter DeBoer has also had a ton of success as well throughout his NHL career in previous, like these other guys. So certainly a wealth of knowledge on this coaching staff. And like I said, there's many other NHL coaches that could have been considered for these roles too, and they would have been just fine as well. So obviously quite a selection there. So we should hopefully find out soon if indeed the NHL will be for sure going. They still have a few issues which I think appear to be minor, but yet seem to be causing significant delays here in getting something announced. So hard to say. And I also saw word that where they're going to be held in China, that the protocols for COVID are going to be expected to be significantly more strict than what you saw just happen here in Tokyo for the Summer Olympics in Japan. There was a number of cases there. Their caseload is now actively on the rise in that region, and it looks as though it's going to be tough. So for these athletes committing to play and attend the Beijing Olympics, it's not going to be easy what they're going to have to go through. So certainly I hope they go, but at the same time I hope that they all make this decision with all the information in mind. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news. We will be back later with another video as well, so stay tuned for that. And of course, I want to know your thoughts on these signings so we can discuss as a community in the comment section. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis here on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.